Hello Dream Theater fans, and welcome to episode number 8 of the Let's Learn Falling into Infinity Guitar and Analysis series. Now, it is to my understanding that this song, Take Away My Pain, is about the passing of Dream Theater guitarist John Petrucci's father, and it acts as both a plea and an overall resignation to this tragic, and dare I say, dramatic turn of events. And the overall line of questioning within the song, "Can you take away my pain?" is a brilliant one. And I'll tell you why. It's because everybody can relate to it, including myself. All the wrong notes, the bad rhythm, the poor performance, the out-of-tune guitars. It's all just so painful. And in this video, I am making a plea to you, the audience, to please, for the love of God, take away my pain through every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression, and a full detailed musical analysis of Take Away My Pain by Dream Theater. For all intents and purposes, Take Away My Pain is a pop song, because it has all of the conventions that we've come to not really know and love, but know and hate from a radio hit song. And it has, number 1, a basic verse, pre-chorus, chorus song structure. Number 2, a very catchy melody line as its chorus hook. And number 3, a bridge section in between. There are, however, things that set this track apart in true Dream Theater fashion. And that includes, number 1, a killer guitar solo in the bridge section that is often underrated and overlooked. Number 2, it includes a passage that is quite hidden, that rivals the difficulty of any Dream Theater instrumental you can think of. And number 3 is an extreme emphasis on repetition. Normally a band will repeat some parts within a regular pop song or a radio song, but in this case, Dream Theater takes it to the absolute limit. And we are going to see exactly how far they take the idea of repetition. And of course, before we can actually take the pain away, we must first inflict pain upon ourselves. So let's take a look at the very first introductory pattern played on the shaker and the drum set. The first two things that occur before anything happens is a shaker accompanied by a count-in. Listen first to the shaker. It's simply a 16th note pattern with an emphasis on the first 3 notes. Chicka chick, chicka chick, chicka chick, chicka chick, dun 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 dun. It reminds me of a way more laid-back version of Mike Portnoy's earlier drum solos. You know the part where he used to get the entire nation of Japan to clap along? Portnoy-san, you have done very well. Let us see what else you can do. Accompanying the shaker is a count-in that ordinarily I wouldn't pay mind to, but under closer inspection, I found a little extra dialogue that needs to be transcribed.
1, 2, 3.
Let me make it a little bit louder for you.
2,
And maybe a little more.
2.
What is actually being said here? Eat shit? Knee shit? Nation? If anybody can enlighten me as to what is actually being said here, I would sincerely appreciate that. Anyways, let's get on to the next thing. Okay, enough messing around. Here is the opening drum groove. A highly syncopated rhythm that goes 1 and E and. E, a 4 and a 1 and E and E, a 4 and a. This rhythm plays very well with the guitar riff that enters in a couple of bars due to the same accents being used. It's also worth noting that this introduction is played using hot rods, which is basically just a bundle of sticks, which means only one thing, Mike Portnoy: you are a fantastic drummer. So now that we understand what Mike Portnoy is doing with his bundle of sticks, we can now start to understand what John Petrucci is doing with his bundle of Italian beard oil and whiskey products. Now this is the repetitive riff that we're going to be seeing for quite literally the entire song. And I'm not joking, literally the entire song. So we better get good at it now. And it's based entirely on an E major shape over at the 2nd fret of the D string. That's where it's rooted. And you want to use your pointer, middle, pinky to play this bottom shape. And then you're going to use the pointer finger to hit the top and the ring finger to hit the top. Alright, so we're going to be moving that around a little bit. So it goes like this. I'll play it real slow. Now, something to note about the picking pattern, you always want to start on a downstroke whenever you hit a new note in those accents. Alright, so you hear those accents, we have the 5th fret of the B string, that's the root. That's going to be a downstroke. Alright, now you can alternate stroke, coming through there, but as soon as you hit the 2nd fret of the E, which is the F sharp by the way, that's the 2, alright, so it's an E sus2 right now, you got to be on a downstroke. Same thing for the 4th fret. So every time you hit a new accented note, that's when you got to hit the downstroke. And if you just keep that going, you'll be fine. You'll get that nice, almost bouncy rhythm. Alright? Of course, you got to mute it as well. Alright, so you're going to mute all the notes in between and slightly unmute the first accented note. Now, let's talk about those accents. These are basically 16th note syncopations that occur in between beats 1 and beats 4. Alright, so beat 1 is where we start. Alright? Then we're going to hit 1, and E4. 1, and E4. These super slow syncopated 16th note rhythms can be some of the most challenging to get down. But if you could feel out exactly where that is and try and tap your foot along to it, then you'll have no problem at all getting through this. Now that's simple enough, but if you want to play this track as it is on the recording, you better be prepared to play this riff 59 times in a row, and that is no joke. I will elaborate a little bit later, but for now, let's go through the first 4 passes of this and listen to the other guitar that comes in the background, adding some rhythmic fills and little percussive elements and added ear candy to the whole mix here. Check it out. Now, for the sake of not being too tedious, and I don't think this part was meant to be tedious, I'm not going to nitpick it like I do 99% of other things on this channel, okay? So for this particular bit, this particular guitar part that runs through a large portion of the song, by the way, this is only the first section where it occurs. Just rewind it if you want to get, super into it and look at how it was played, all right? Because I think clearly this was an improvised moment on the guitar, and I don't really think it warrants, understanding 100% of what's going on. It's clearly something that just sounds cool in the background, and John Petrucci just used as a layering technique to kind of spice up the part a little bit. So, and it really is self-explanatory. The depth is on the surface. Just go have at it, rewind the video, replay it again if you're really interested in how it goes. And I'm going to do the same thing for every other incarnation as well. Now, if you want to accurately recreate the sound of this to a T, you're going to need a combination of 3 different pedals. Number 1 being a phase shifter or a phaser pedal. Nice slow warble. Kind of like the ocean waves on John Petrucci's hair. Number 2, you're going to need an LFO filter, which basically, or resonance filter, which basically creates that quacky wah sound. Wow, 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 wow. Almost like an auto wah. You could kind of get away with even having a slow auto wah on as well. And number 3, you're going to need a delay pedal on a relatively slow setting, maybe somewhere around 350 milliseconds. I'll leave that up to you, but this is not a tutorial on how to get the exact effects here, alright? We're focusing on the notes strictly. I know a lot of people have been requesting for me to do effect videos, and I've been thinking about it. So just give me some time, give me some space, and I'll work it out for you. Beyond the introduction, we have 10 more repetitions of that riff, bringing us to 14 times total already. And we didn't even get past the first verse yet. Now, on top of these 10 repetitions also comes 10 more of those guitar scratchy rhythm tracks. Guitar scratchy, what am I talking about? That little fill track, guitar number 2 that we just went over. So if you'd like to learn it verbatim, please pause the video, rewind, go back and watch it again. Here it is. Now, even though the rhythm guitar just plays that static riff 10 times in a row, there is a chord progression that occurs underneath being played by the bass and the synthesizer. So let's gloss through these real quickly. The first 4 bars are just on that E chord. Here we go. E to E sus4. That's an A chord, the 4 chord, B. It's like you won't be singing in the rain. That's the 5 chord. Back to the E. Okay, a couple bars there. And then here we go to a B minor. To A. Take away my pain. And that's where that pre-chorus riff hits. We're not going to do that yet. So basically it's just a 1-4-5 progression, but with a little bit of a twist. Okay? That B minor chord comes in as a minor 5 chord. Wow. After we just played a major 5 chord, right? Now the normal progression is E, A to B. All right, with that nice dominant chord going back to the tonic. But because we're putting the minor in there, it just gives it a little bit of weight coming back down to the A chord, which then returns to the E. And it works just the same as a regular old 5 chord, but just adds a little bit more color and of course a little bit more sophistication, just like Dream Theater is known to offer toward our lives. And it really does seek to improve upon the classic pop song formula, or I should say the tired pop song formula. So minor 5 instead of major 5. Pretty cool if you ask me. With all that in mind, let's take a listen to all of those changes along the verse progression. I've included the static riff, the bass, and the keyboards. Here we start with the 1 chord. To the 4 chord, then the 5 chord, B, back to the 1. Then a minor 5 to flip the script, to major 4 once again, and back to the 1 for the next section of the song. And that 4 chord A serves to bring us cadentially down into the next part of the song, which I'm going to dub the pre-chorus section, which sounds like this, a very short progression. Now, as you can tell, there were 3 guitars playing along to that ascending arpeggio line, the first of which, of course, being the repetitive riff, twice now, bringing us to a grand total of, not a grand total, but a total of 16 times thus far. We also had a clean guitar playing that arpeggio line, doubled with a 12 string, which I happen to have right here. And those shapes move just like this. Check it out. I just love that high octave on the G string there. It gives it a nice chimey color to it. Now, basically what we're dealing with is an E5 power chord. All right, that represents the 1 chord. but it has the sound of a power chord. The fifths sound very open, okay, and it gives it that nice breathy type of sound, almost like it's airy, a very pure tone. That's the one chord, which then goes up to an F sharp. All right, so here we have an F sharp, which is the root. You have an A sharp, that's the major third. Then we have a flat 7 up top, that's the E. And then the fourth added onto it, which you can also call that an 11th. So I'm going to say this is F sharp 7 with an added 11th. All right, because we have the major third and the fourth in the same exact chord. So F sharp 7, add 11, or you can even say add 4 if you want. 4 and 11 are interchangeable. But it has a very cool sound. And the fact that we make that a major chord instead of a minor chord, a naturally occurring F sharp chord would be minor in the E major tonality, right? That would be the 2 to the 1 chord, but here it's a major 2, which isn't a 2 chord at all. Usually when you see this move, that indicates a secondary dominant chord. All right, now secondary dominant is just the 5 of the 5 within the key. And as we know from before, the 5 chord is a B chord. All right, now the 5 of a B is F sharp. And usually the F sharp would go to a B, or the 5 would go to, the 5 of 5 would go to the 5, which would then go to the 1 chord. But here, it's just bypassing any of that and just continuing on with the progression. Now, putting that major F sharp chord adds a lot more weight to the motion moving upward. And all the other chords are basically the same shape. That's an A chord. All right, now here we have a root, a third, a fifth, and a ninth. All right, so that's an A with an added ninth. Very nice sound to it. And then this final one is a B with an added 11th. All right, you have the root, major third, the 11th, and the root once again doubled on the open string. Now, this phenomenon here, with the open B and E strings on top of every single chord, is a very common technique used by John Petrucci, especially in the 90s, okay? It started to taper off a little bit after Scenes from a Memory, but, you know, that was effectively the close of the 90s, right? But all throughout these 90s albums, these open B and E string voicings make plenty of appearances. And they just sound so nice and glassy. Alright, so once again we have E5, F sharp, 7 add 11, A add 9, with the same pattern, and the B add 11 to finish it off. So it's basically 1, 5 of 5, but we ignore, okay, that resolution back to 5. Then we go to 4, and then up to 5 eventually. So the F sharp does eventually reach the B chord, but it has to take an extra step along the way. The bass and the keyboards are very simple in a rhythmic sense, but there is one thing worth pointing out here. Take a listen to those 4 chords. The keyboards simply play ascending major chords on the first 3, but on the final chord, keyboardist Derek Sherinian opts for a sus4 instead. Listen once more. I'll call this the Oasis effect, as it is something that would be played by a douchey frat guy on the acoustic guitar, and Derek appeared to be influenced by all sorts of guitarists throughout his career, leading to this approach. Now, coming into the chorus section, we have to talk about how important this is. So it's not only the most crucial part of the song because it's the hook, and, you know, we have the "take away my pain" mantra going throughout the whole part. It's also the most densely layered, especially in the guitar department. So let's take a look at what this first guitar is doing. Here we just have a very simple power chord progression, adding a little more reinforcement to the chord progression already being laid out by the bass and the keyboards. And we start here on the 1 chord. It's simply E, okay? That's held out for 2 bars. We then go to D. That is the flat 7th chord. We haven't seen that one yet, all right? The flat 7 has a lot of weight in the opposite direction now, whereas the F sharp had a lot of weight in the ascending direction. This has a lot of weight in the descending direction, all right? So when in doubt, use steps that you might not ordinarily see. Usually we would see a half step, but here we're seeing a whole step, which, like I said, carries a lot of weight. That's the flat 7th chord. Then we hit into this, C sharp. This is the 6th chord, or the relative minor, all right? So very important. Then we come down to the 4 chord, back to E. All right, so nothing too crazy here. On the second time we repeat, we go to E, that's the 1 chord, and then we do this. We go to a B. Now this represents itself as a B minor. That's a minor 5 once again. All right, so second part of the song where we're utilizing this compositional technique of using a minor 5 instead of a major 5. Pretty cool. It's also a reharmonization of the D chord. Now when you put a B on the bottom of a D chord, you get yourself a B minor 7th. So it's a harmonic extension going down from D. All right, so this minor 5 chord has the same functionality as the flat 7th chord, all right, or can be used interchangeably for a reharmonization. That's exactly what's happening. It's just a reharmonization of the first time around, all right? After that B minor, we just go right to C sharp again, that's the 6, to the 4 chord, and then we resolve very nicely back into the 1. Now to add to that support is the 12 string once again, to just add a little bit more thickness to the chords being played with the heavier electric guitar. And the 12 string uses basically all the same chords, but with that open B and E string ringing out above, just like a lot of the early John Petrucci guitar parts. I also forgot to mention that there's another layer on top of this, and it's the repetitive riff from the verse part. That's right. It goes through the entire chorus. All those chord changes, all right? Now, thank God, everything sounds good, right? The repetitive riff sounds good over all the chord changes. Otherwise, we'd be in some serious deep shit here, all right? For sure. So we're not gonna have to worry about it. But it does go 14 times in a row, and guess what? That brings us to 30 times so far, non-stop since we started the song. Unbelievable. The next layer is one of the layers the listener actually perceives while listening to the songs. So far, it's just been sort of coloring, all right? Coloring in the part, adding in a little bit more beef and low end and support to the chord progression. But here, we actually have a moving line, also repetitive, it never changes throughout the entire thing, and running through the chord progression. Here it is. And as a quick aside, this riff is also playing along with the keyboard part as well. Take a listen here to the keyboards. It's a similar idea to the guitar, just a little less busy. The rhythm is the same, and the notes moving on top are also the same. Let's reintroduce the guitar. Nice, now let's take a quick look at the positioning here and the rhythm. It follows a duplet rhythm, so a 2 against 3 type of feel. Here it is. Now all the while, you gotta make sure that you're letting these notes ring out. Now Now, in order to do that, you have to use these very specific fingers here. So the pointer is going to be on the 9th, the middle is going to be on the 10th, and then you got to use your ring and your pinky at the same time on the 12th and 12th of the B and the E string, all right? So you can have everything ring out. Listen. When you start it over, that high 12th fret needs to continue to ring out over the progression, all right? So make sure you do that. It's a very important stylistic choice here, all right? Makes it sound so much better as well. Now, essentially, we have a dotted 8th note rhythm on every note except for the last two, all right? So it's like ba, 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 8th note, ba, 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 8th note, all right? So everything's very, kind of syncopated, very simple part as well. So there's really not too much to talk about here. And it's an E to an E sus4. Just like we've been seeing for quite some time now, especially in that keyboard part played by Derek Sherinian. And the next and final layer of this giant 5-layer beefcake is another repetitive rhythm that comes in halfway through the chorus. Very Billy Corgan of you, John Petrucci. What's next? You're going to ride around in an ice cream truck with a weird hat on and go to Disney World, go on a roller coaster, and have the entire world give you grief for it? So we got to lay it down like the Pumpkins did in 1991. Here we go. Ready? Me of Today is the Greatest. That's why I made the ice cream truck reference. If you've never seen the music video for that song, go watch it. Billy Corgan is driving around in an ice cream truck. Very poetic. I don't know what that means. Anyway, so we have a pickup note of the 12th fret, very quick, going into the 12th fret of the E string. So that's just an E power chord. And then we have the F sharp up top on the 14th fret. That's the 9th, all right? Or the sus2, better yet. And then going up to G sharp, which is the 3rd of the chord. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3. Then you have that little double coming in on the repeat. So listen to that. Pull off double, pull off double, pull off double. Billy Corgan must be very proud of me right now. Pull off double. So that's the only fanciness you have to worry about in the technique. Other than that, it's very simple to play. It's kind of hard to hear that ending, but it's there. Trust me, it's there. Anyway, all of those notes play along with the original repetitive riff that we've been hearing and are continuing to hear through the entire song. Watch. Side by side. Same thing. Exactly the same. A brilliant move on the part of John Petrucci. Just play something simple. Keep it simple, stupid. That's the best way that you can go about this, all right? Especially with a composition like this. You're writing a simple song as a Dream Theater guy, just play the same thing up the octave. You know what? John Petrucci actually does this quite a lot in a compositional sense, all right? Even in the more difficult songs, a trick that he uses is this exact one. Just take the same riff, play it in a different way and in a higher octave, and boom, people won't even realize you're doing it half the time, because let's face it, a lot of Dream Theater transitions, they get kind of crazy. But guess what? There is an element of simplicity to this, even though Dream Theater is known to be incredibly complex. Instrumentally speaking, there's only one more thing that happens of interest, and it's within the keyboard part. Check this out. I'll solo it with the bass and the other synth. This little lead is a really nice way to end off the chorus, and super emotional way to end it as well. It basically uses only root notes, as it starts with a pickup G sharp to C sharp, which is the root of C sharp minor, with a leap up to E, which is the flatted 3rd, and another leap up to A, which is the root of A major. This then descends downward to E, which is, well, the root E. Let's hear it soloed once again. So now that we have a good understanding of all the parts that make up this chorus, let's slap them all together into one big smorgasbord of guitar heaven. 5-layer guitar beefcake. Aside from the guitar layering, we also have some vocal layering going on as well, some harmonies. The lead vocal is just James Labrie singing the main melody, and the harmony vocals go between 1 and 2 voices depending on the line. Let's listen to that first line of lyrics.
Take away my pain.
We have the lead line up top. This uses the 5th, root, 2nd, and 3rd, with the 3rd being the held out note. The harmony has 2 voices, a low one singing what is essentially a double of the higher octave in the lead vocal, and a middle one singing the 3rd to the 5th. Together, all 3 voices sound like this.
Take away my pain.
This vocal layering just further illustrates the point that Falling Into Infinity is one of their most highly produced albums in the catalog. Pretty crazy to think about. An easy enough harmony to understand, and that pattern largely continues until we hit a very specific line. And that's this one right here.
I'm not frightened anymore.
This occurs on the B minor chord and has some very crunchy intervals in the lower 2 harmony voices. These voices are singing an A, the flat 7th of B minor, and a B, the root of B minor. Together, this creates a major 2nd interval. It kind of sounds like teeth chattering, doesn't it? It also kind of sounds like chopsticks as well. Enough of that nonsense. Following that chorus section, we once again hit that repetitive riff for another 2 times for a brief reintroduction. And then it hits another 10 times for verse number 2. Now, this brings us to a total of 42 times of playing that repetitive riff straight. No breaks. And I'm not kidding either, not a single break at all. Youch, that's gonna hurt. You're gonna have to put some ice on that bunghole, let me tell you. Now, also what comes along with those 10 repetitive riffs in the verse is, you guessed it, more of those percussive fills that happen, well, over the verse or behind the verse, whichever one you want to perceive it as. Chorus 2 sees the addition of yet another guitar. So this time we have 4 guitars playing on this section. Check this out. And it's just a heavy power chord sequence to beefing up those arpeggios, basically adding a little bit of bottom end, a little bit of beefcake najaroni, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you better know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that brings along another 2 of those repetitive riffs, alright? Which brings us to 44 repetitions. And then we have to add another 14 because chorus 2 2 is exactly the same as chorus 1. That brings us to 58 times around. But that's not the end of the story. The next reintro beyond that chorus section has one more repetition, bringing us all the way to 59 times. Ugh, boy. Following this short reintro is the bridge section, and there are 4 crucial layers that we are going to detail here, 3 of them being guitars. Let's take a listen to the first guitar layer, which is reminiscent of an idea we've been talking about this whole time. It's going to make your eyes glaze over, and it's going to make you wonder, what were they thinking? Yep, so you thought we were going to be done with this riff now, did you? This repetitive riff we've been playing for 59 times. Well, guess what? It's a little bit different, but we still have to suffer with eternal anguish and purgatory for the time being. And it's the same riff we've been playing for 59 times in a row, but it's minor this time. Oh boy, let's check it out. Ready? We can use different fingerings this time as well. Fingers 1, 3, pinky, and then the pointer on that top one. And then we're going to use our middle finger right there. Give you old fuck you to Dream Theater for playing this riff so many times. Check it out. Here we go. So it's like this. It's just E minor instead of E major. Wow. Unbelievable. So creative. So undeniably incredible. Now, one of the cool things here is that shape works on top of 2 different chords that are being presented here. The first of which is a C chord. Alright, so if we put this E5 power chord with this kind of thing, it's a C major 7, alright, which is a Lydian sound. So it actually sounds like this when we put it all together. Very cool sound, very jazzy sound, but also very emotional as well. And this, I think, is quite clearly the most emotional part of the entire song. Alright, so kudos to them for actually making this part awesome. This is my favorite part of the song, by the way, so I'm not that mad about this repetitive riff. I'm just mad that I gotta play it more, alright? I haven't gotten a break this entire time, and I'm still not getting a break. This riff is now played a total of 6 more times, bringing us to the magic number of 65. And guess what? I'm going to count it towards the grand total because we haven't had a break. You try to play the major one 59 times in a row, and then play the minor one, and tell me if you think that you've gotten a break after going 65 times through the same picking pattern and relatively the same shape. Guess what? I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think about that. Is it a break? Did you get a break? No, you didn't. Next layer. And that next layer is an additional 12 string to add a little extra color to this nice bridge section. And here's a real quick rundown of what's going on there. We have a C add 9 shape, but we're only playing 3 notes. Check it out. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3. Then going to E minor 7. 3, 4. 2, 3. Back to C. 3, 4. 2, 3. And then that's the end of that section right there, and the end of the 12 string for at least this bit. So it's basically a C add 9 shape, right? Which is almost like every rose has its thorn, and also every Oasis song you could possibly imagine. Really just Wonderwall, but hey, listen, who's keeping track here? I'm keeping track. So we got that C add 9, super 90s alternative chord if you ask me, man. That's exactly what it is. Gin Blossoms. Goo Goo Dolls. Think of all the 90s alternative crap that you heard on the radio, right? Well, this is embodying every single one of those bands, alright? And then this same thing with this E minor 7. You have an E, you got a G, that's a flatted 3rd, you got a D, that's a flatted 7th, alright? Now with the C, those 2 notes on top are the 5th and the 9th, alright? And that's basically all you get. And it outlines the two chords that appear during this bridge part. It's basically C, which is the flat 6 of E minor, and then E minor, which is the 1. Alright? Ooh, almost sounds like I'm about to play Nutshell by Alice in Chains. That's a beautiful song as well. And not nearly in the same category as, say, Wonderwall or John Resnick's Goo Goo Dolls. Alright, now what's next over here? What do we got here? Layer number 3 is going to deviate from the guitar and focus on the bass and the synth. So let's check out what's going on over there. Now here is the part. The bass and synth are essentially doubling each other here. And this kind of reminds me of Tears for Fears. Another nod to the 1980s here. It's a very rhythmic and kind of heavy bass line that feels extremely percussive. Almost like a modern organ with some extra robot sauce. The final layer of this bridge is an absolute doozy. And it really ass blasted me the very first time that I heard this. I'm telling you, I was hoodwinked. I was bamboozled. And I was in a general state of disbelief that I had to learn something of this caliber in the easy Dream Theater song. Let's take a listen to what we're dealing with here. Yep, you heard that right. This is the most technically difficult bit by far, and you can't really even tell it's in the song. Although the next time you listen to it, listen for it, and you'll hear it. I'll play it very slowly first, just to give you an idea. It's basically the first 2 bars of this lick, and it's a very repetitive pattern, alright? Based on the 8th and 7th on the B, and the 9th and 7th of the G. So you better get used to playing that here. Now the trick here is to count exactly how many times that you do each individual part. And I'll specify a little bit later, but check it out. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that's basically it in a nutshell. Now you noticed I was counting as I was going. That marks how many times I do the single 8 7s and the 9 7s. Alright, so that is all one thing. It actually starts off with a volume swell on the 8th and going to the 7th. Very simple. And then it picks up 9 7 and then we're on the downbeat essentially. So, alright, and it goes that fast as well within the recording. Now I'm going to play that very first little bit, that first measure, and we're going to really break this down here. So we have this, ready? You see that? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's what you got to do. 1, 2, 3. And you got to get used to doing it in that succession as well. Starts off with 3. Then if you look at the next measure, we have 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Before we hit a double 8 7. Which is really kind of cool because it offsets the rhythm a little bit, syncopates it a little bit more. It makes it sound like we're almost on this grid, this weird like rhythmic grid of 16th notes, but every once in a while you hit one that's off kilter and off center here. So starting it again, up until that point, up till the first double, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And be sure when you're alternate picking, you let the right hand just rip, alright? See that? We're just going jigga 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 jigga, alright? That's all we're doing. And that's how you can keep count. So one more time. Bum, bum, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, double. And that's where you do the double. Then after you do that first double, you got to go to 3 more singles of the original one. 1, 2, 3, and then you go to the 10th fret for 1 time. That's like an E minor 11. Very nice sound. Okay, it's all on E minor, by the way. And then we hit the next double, and then essentially just finish off with a single, double, not not a double. It's a single on this one, a single 10. Alright, and then we hit another double, and one more single to finish it out. So it's basically you have to group it up. You have 3 times, 4 singles, double, 3 singles, 10, double, single, 10, double, single, and then we get a tiny little break in between this and the next lick that comes in, alright? So it's very important that you know that you start on the next upbeat that comes in, right? So we end the last part like this. You basically only have 1 beat in between, and you have to come in on the upbeat for that next portion. And you're also going to end on the 7th fret again, but that's going to be on the downbeat. All right, so here, ready? 1. All those downbeats, you got to feel those out, all right? Now, obviously, the hard part comes from playing it fast, but guess what? You're just going to have to let the right hand rip just like you were before, all right? Let's do it a little bit faster. You have to really make sure you relax that right hand, but also make sure you're playing through the string and you rip through it nice every single time, all right? So, you just have to follow the exact pattern. That's the first bit. And then we do these. Maybe go through like the first 4 notes and then the second 4 notes and then keep on going. Right? And then by the time you hit back to the 7th fret here, you have this exercise in thirds. So you're just leaping down, step, third, 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 step, step, and then you're finally at the end there. So let's get that one more time here, full speed, and we'll move on to the next part. So here we go. 1. Alright, so just got to make sure you're lining in and basically syncing up with every single move on the left hand. Remember, when you're doing fast alternate picking, a lot of the times the problem is not in the right hand, it's in the left hand. Alright, you're just not connecting. Alright, now obviously, got to connect with both the right hand on the right string and the left hand going along with that pick. Alright, so I know it seems obvious, but a lot of times people forget the most obvious crucial points, and I'm here to point it out for you. The next section harkens back to the original section with those repetitive 8/7, 9/7s. This time we just have a slightly different configuration. We have a double, single, double, and then 3 singles, ending once again on that 7th fret. Alright, so once again, double, double, single, double, double, single, single, single. Always keeping count. Double, double, single, double, double, 1, 2, 3. We have only one other section here left, all right? And this is kind of like a classic John Petrucci moment. I could imagine this being in one of his more complex leads, maybe even during like a section of Take the Time. It's almost reminiscent of some of those crazy keyboard and guitar unisons that happen during that song, but this is clean and cast out in the background, and also a part of Take Away My Pain, which is not Take the Time. 2 totally different songs, and as a Dream Theater fan, you should know there's a clear line between a song like Take Away My Pain and Take the Time. Take the Time is insane. Take Away My Pain is nice and beautiful. But of course, it's insane in its own way, right? Especially with the repetitions. But anyway, let me just get into this lick here real fast. Well, not real fast, I want to play it real slow. Check it out. So a very rhythmic idea, and once again, you're coming in on an upbeat. So it's 1, 5 times, and then 2 times on that high one. Now these are both based upon E minor ideas, and you want to make sure you pick and then hammer on to the high string. So pick on the G and then hammer. And you do that 5 times in a row. Then you're going to go to the 12th fret and do the same exact thing. But 2 times in a row. Alright? So really we're doing flat 7, root, 5th, and root. So it's really just an E minor 7. And you want to make sure you get that consistent rhythm going, right? Ba-da-bop, 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 ba-da-bop. And it's basically just a, it's a horse gallop. Alright, anyway, let me play it for real one more time for you, and this is basically the idea. Oh, never mind, this one up here, that's an E minor 11th. John Petrucci used to be unafraid of the 11th chord, but now it seems like he's very afraid of the 11th chord. Very strange. I don't know why. But here we go. One more time through at full speed. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. Pretty cool, huh? And that basically concludes that entire section. So with that said, let's take one more listen to it all the way through. And I'm going to kind of leave a counting track over the top of it. Alright? So enjoy this.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, double double, 1, 2, 3, 10, double double, 1, 10, double double, 1, thirds, double double, 1, double double, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2.
So Dream Theater's easiest song, My Ass. This whole experience has been very bittersweet. The bitterness comes in when I reach a part like this and I realize, damn, I'm not going to get a break on this song, am I? And guess what? I don't get a break. I thought this one was going to be a nice and easy one. I could just kind of flow through it, get it done real fast, boom, out the door, get it out to you guys, but, well, hit a little roadblock along the way. But there is a sweet side to this. Of course, it is bittersweet. And the sweet side comes from discovering a super cool part that I never knew existed until this point, till I tried learning it. And you know what? All the trouble was worthwhile because I get to share one of these moments from my favorite band with all of you. Alright? So hopefully you appreciate it. I love you all. And let's move on with this song. And the next step in doing so is within the rhythm guitar, or really the rhythm section of the guitar solo. Let's take a look at all of the instruments that we're working with here. We basically have the guitar, organ, bass, and synthesizer. So these are 4 different elements going on simultaneously, outlining the chord progression. The first layer being the guitar, which plays this chord progression starting on E minor, which is the 1 chord. D as the flat 7th, back to E minor, to D, to C, D, C, D. So it's basically just 3 chords. Doubling this is the organ and synth patch. This shows just how versatile this sound is. It mixes well with both a soft and tender section and this epic guitar solo rhythm track. Next up we have the low end, which is made up of a bass synth and a regular bass. Here's the absolute balls to the wall synth that we have here. Damn, I just pooped my pants! And here is the regular bass guitar. Now at first glance, it seems like a clean double of the synth part, but when you play the 2 together, you realize it's not. Take another listen. As you can tell, the D in the bass happens at a different time than the synth. Ordinarily, you would attempt to fix this type of thing, but some things don't come through the mix and slip right through the cracks. And it didn't seem to matter, now did it? You wouldn't have noticed unless I pointed it out to you. But now, you're never going to unnotice it once you notice it. That's something about noticing things. Once you notice it, it's never going away, alright? A lot of Beatles songs are like that too. You know, there's like some detail in there where you hear it once, and boom, it's there for life. Anyway, let's get into the guitar solo, and let's just hear how epic this damn thing is. It's one of the most underrated and I think underappreciated and least played, least performed. I don't see a lot of covers of this on YouTube, or if I do, very, very low viewership. So let's try and crank that up a little bit, would ya? it'll help me out as well. All right, anyway, let's go. Guitar solo, here we go. Let's hop into the first section of that solo, which sets up the main theme that we're going to hear a few times, and the first two bars. So here we go. Playing nice and slow. Got this right here. Check it out. Alright, so I'm going to stop it right there. Basically coming in with this little thing. It's basically the fifth to the root of an E chord. So that's the 5 and 1. Come down a whole step, do the same thing, it's a fifth and root of a D chord. Exactly what was down in the rhythm guitar. Okay, and then here, you want to do a little position change. You want to hit the same note as you did before, the 16th fret of the G, but instead of hitting the 17th fret, you're going to do a 15th fret full step bend. And kind of fall down like a whale in heat. Then right after that, the very final beat, we're going to play some 16th note triplets on this arpeggio line. Watch. Alright, so that's basically like, it sounds like Yngwie Malmsteen, you know? So it's basically like an E minor ninth arpeggio. You're going from the 14th to the 15th, low E string, all the way down. That's resolving from the 9th to the flatted 3rd. Then going up to here, 14th, 14th, that's the 5th to the root, alright? So we've been seeing that a lot. The last final notes is F sharp and G again, which is the root, not the root, the 9th and the flat 3rd. So, you're basically coming up in E minor 9 arpeggio there. Then we come back in, right? We have to go... Now that's basically the continuation of that theme, alright? Listen again. Full step on that 17th fret. Now that brings us to the note F sharp, alright? So when you play an E and an F sharp together, it creates the interval of a ninth, alright? So once again, E minor ninth being explicitly outlined here. Now when it comes to the vibrato, alright, let's rewind a little bit. You want to make sure you have vibrato on basically all of these notes except the portions that I point out. So, vibrato, 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 no vibrato, but you have a big bend, vibrato, 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 and then for that final bend, you're not going to add the vibrato in until after a little bit of time. So watch. Static, and then at the very tail end you add the vibrato, okay? Now basically we come in and we just hop up the E minor scale a little bit further. We go like this. A pretty cool lick right there. Very, very classic. Classic. Sounds like it belongs in an 80s song, alright? So check this out. Basically going, scaling up E minor from the 9th. So you got F sharp, G, A, B, full step bend on that note. That brings you up to a B. That's the 5th of the E minor chord. And then basically, before you even bring it down, you're going to go down a half step from there. So basically you're getting a B flat. That's the flatted 5th. That's the blue note. But it's coming out of that whole step bend, so it has a really cool effect. And you basically bypass the note in between. You bypass the 17th fret entirely, which would be an A. So we're not doing that. We're going straight to the G. So it's almost like we're playing a diminished arpeggio right out of that. So this has a lot of emotion to it, a lot of feeling, all right? And then we basically come into this other part where we have a big time bend on the 20th fret, which which goes up to an A. All right, that's kind of cool. That's an E minor 11th. Yeah, that's right, a sus4, just being very aggressively handled. All right, and then everything kind of gets very fast. So let's just go back. We're going to play everything up until that point nice and slow. Watch this once again. Here we go. E minor 9, 5 root, 5 root, 5 root, 9, and then all right, so a nice little whale dive at the end there as well. Now here's where things get a little bit crazy. Okay, we have to get into pure Petrucci mode at this moment. So the notes are going to be flying very, very quickly. We're starting up high, and we're ending up pretty high as well. This is like the climax of the whole thing here. So let me play it slowly for you, and then we'll break down how to do it quickly. So this is right after the bend. So let's kind of break that down a little bit. Of course, we got to hit that bend first, very aggressively, and then immediately after it, you don't have a lot of time coming after, and you have this. You basically scale down the E minor scale from that 19th fret. All alternate picks. And then what you have to do is tremolo pick that 3-note pattern on the B string. It's basically 3, 2, 1 in minor. And you do it 4 times in a row, very fast. And you kind of gradually increase speed as well. Watch. So you start with those first 5 notes, then you go 4 times on that 3-note pattern. Watch. Alright? And then that continues downward. One more time. Alright, so now that we understand that, it's 4 times after that. Right after, you got to beam down the rest of the scale. Alright? And that brings us to the sort of the ending of that section, which is more triplets, which actually starts on the 17th fret of the D, going right up the E minor scale. It's almost like a G major scale. But we're not going up to the high root, we're actually stopping on the F sharp. Alright, so back down all the way through that entire thing. Watch. Except without sounding like shit. Let's try it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now full speed on it. Watch. And just gotta make sure you're plowing down all those notes in the scale. You gotta get all the way down these. Gotta get all the way down to the 16th fret on the D string there. And then immediately after, triple it. Alternate picking. Now that final high note there, that F sharp to G to E, that's a Lydian resolution, alright? So if we put the clean channel on, it's basically the C chord happening there, and explicitly on the sharp 11th. Going up to the 5th, down to the 3rd. Now that's a Lydian resolution. Very, very, very nice effect here, alright? So after the triplet, hold it out for the rest of the measure, slide down, and then we're going to slide into this last and final lick, which goes like this. Alright, now, I'm just going to tell you right now, that's an E minor 9th type of thing once again. And you can play that on top of a C as well, and that's the chord that's being outlined underneath this, all right? Or a D, it doesn't matter. Any of those chords within the progression, C to D, C to D, and E, they all work with all these licks, all right? It's just going to sound good no matter what you do, okay? Now, but basically, when you're on a C, it creates a major 7th, the 3rd, and that sharp 11th once again. So we're using that F sharp very frequently. And that's the minor 9th of the E chord, but also the sharp 11th of a C. Alright, so it's a multi-use F sharp. Don't forget that. Now, make sure you do that little hammer on there, that little blip. You're not just hitting the note like this. hitting it like this. And then kind of skipping around, doing some thirds. Down to that, that's the 5th of the E minor chord, which then goes all the way down to the root on E. Alright, now that's a big slide. But you actually do slide down it that fast. It's basically a grace note from that coming to the root. Alright, so let's go right from that midpoint and then we'll get the whole thing. So here we go. Midpoint, nice and slow. Here we go. Just for shits, let's get it one more time all the way through. Here we go. We're going to go big time, big time, big time. Here we go. Watch for the vibrato. Ready? Real heavy on there. Ooh. Get that emotion in there. Don't be a freaking stone. Static vibrato. Big bend up. Half bend. Woo. A little late on those triplets, but you don't have to be. Do as I say, not as I do. A very much underrated solo from Mr. John Petrucci. It's not praised very much in the Dream Theater community. I mean, some people do. Some people really love it and they try to advocate for it, but there's really not a lot of noise about this one, even though it's totally epic and probably one of the coolest solos I've ever heard in my life. And it fits perfectly with what's going on. It's a very cool juxtaposition, too, as the first 3 minutes of the song are very nice and gentle and in a major key. Then all of a sudden we're hitting him with big E minor and shredding too. Like I said, this reminds me of something that should have come out of the 1980s, right? And this honestly should have been in Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison. It's in the same key. Well, technically they're in E flat tuning, but they're basically playing in E minor. And I think John Petrucci could have made that whole situation so much better with a solo like this. Instead, we got the kind of crappy one that's already in the song. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This is a great song in its own right. And like I said, a very cool juxtaposition of styles, right? You have the ballady style of the early part, percussive, very almost like jungle-like, you know? Like Tarzan, like the Tarzan soundtrack with Phil Collins at the helm. And then all of a sudden we're into this, like, you know, power ballad right in the middle, like super power ballad, a buzz ballad, so to speak. But yeah, it's about all I have to say about that. Great, great solo. I would say about a 10 out of 10. It's about as good as it could possibly be because it's short, it's sweet, it doesn't stay for too long, doesn't insist upon itself, and it keeps Take Away My Pain from not being a pop song. Not being a total pop song, that is. Very cool solo. Can't say it enough times. Now, I've spent so much time rejoicing about this solo that I completely forgot that palm muted minor riff goes through the entire thing, which is absolutely unbelievable. And guess what? That brings this bridge section to a total of 14 more times of playing the palm muted riff. Alright, that brings us to 73 total muted riffs in a row with no break. Isn't that crazy? Well, guess what? It doesn't end there. After the solo, we have a re-intro that goes right back to major. So, watch, we're at the end of the solo. Last couple times, minor, and then into major immediately. That's 4 more times. That brings us to 77 times. Wow. Unbelievable. I can't believe we're doing this. It's unbelievable. I want to just want to scream at the top of my lungs, but I'm not going to. I'm going to show restraint. I'm a man. It's time to do that. Let's get into the next part. Wait a minute. No, we can't get into the next part because guess what? Verse 3 has 10 more of these riffs. So we can't move on. So it looks like I'm not going to have any composure left. I'm done. I'm done. Alright? But guess what? I can't be done. I have to keep going to the end until we finish this. Alright? Guess how many that is? What's 77 plus 10? Children. 87 times without a break. Are you kidding me? This is shaping up to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever been a part of. And you know what makes it even more annoying? There's a whole nother set of those percussive fills that happens behind this throughout the entire verse, which take a listen to right now and flip through it at your leisure. I'm not going to explain much about what's going on, except a lot of it's in E. Sometimes it mixes E minor in there. You know, there's really not much to be said about it. It's just a bunch of noodling on part of John Petrucci. But enjoy it anyway. So after that round of percussive fills, we hit back into another pre-chorus with, of course, 2 more repetitions of that same riff that we've been hearing over and over and over again. That's 2 more times. That brings us to a total of, what is it now? Hold on, let me take a look at my notes. 89 times. It was at 87, now it's 89, and it made me lose my spot in my book. Not that I really need it for this portion of the program, but it would be nice to have, you know what I'm saying? And although we have that repetitive riff coming back to haunt us yet again, there is one thing that changes in this pre-chorus that's actually pretty cool. And it's within Mike Portnoy's drum part. Check this out. It's a full-fledged drum overdub that seeks to reinforce the idea that's already being played. Plus it adds some classic Mike Portnoy triplet flair to the equation. In addition to this, there's one more he does in the middle of the chorus as well. Anyway, we basically have to go into the chorus section, the final chorus section, and all we have in there are some keyboards that are a little bit different than what we've been hearing. The same sound though, so let's check that out for a little bit. Let's hear that last keyboard part. Like I said before, it's basically the same exact patch that we've been hearing, that gritty organ sound, but this time it's much more active and busy and is outlining more of a dominant 7th, which we've been hearing in some of the parts playing around with the overall modality of it all. It's a perfect way to break up the monotony of the 3 choruses because every single one of them has been the same so far, really except for this one. The only other difference in that chorus is the guitar part, and it just cuts out the second C sharp that happens, and that's in the, well, it's the rhythm guitar for the most part. So basically going with E, okay, and then it goes D, C sharp, the second time around it goes E to the B, but instead of going to the C sharp again like it normally does, it just goes right to A. Yep. Hit it again. I'll be knocking at your door. Alright, but not in a weird way. And that final chorus section brings us another 14 repetitions. Alright, 89 plus 14, guess what that equals? 103. I'm numb to it at this point, people. I don't really care anymore. I'm going to reserve my freak out for the end here. But we do have an outro section that we have to get through. And the bass pretty much completely cuts out, except it plays this little lick after it holds it out. It just goes like this. That's literally all it does, so it's kind of cool. Bass is out. The repetitive riff goes again, but I'm going to take a break from that for now. Been playing it 103 times in a row already. Please, give me a break here. And then essentially what happens here is we have another set of ending fills in the guitar, in that same guitar track that we've been showing the entire time. But instead of doing like percussive type of things, it basically goes through a series of harmonics. all right, which we're definitely going to get into. And so just take a listen to it first, and then I'm going to show you what's going on the way out. This is one that I think is worth pointing out because it actually has some very interesting color palettes that the harmonics offer to us. So let's check that out. And here we go, the final section of the entire song, this last lead part that caps the whole thing together. By the way, that keyboard part that was playing that moving line with that dominant seventh, that's still going as this is going as well. So let's check this out. Start off on the 12th fret, and you're going like this. Simple enough. That's just the 5th to the root. All these harmonics have specific notes that it outlines. And then we have that's the 7th fret of the G string. That's the dominant 7th. Alright, so now we're outlining the flatted 7th. Alright, the guitar's been doing it periodically throughout this, but that's the first like real explicit example. So, and then, very cool sound. And then it comes into this. Pretty cool, huh? So all those are just harmonics within the 4th and the 5th fret and the 7th fret to some extent, but that 4th fret is basically a C sharp, and that's happening on top of the E. Well, guess what? We're going basically C sharp to D to minor 2nd to a G. So that's C sharp, which is the natural 6th, that's a Dorian note, the flatted 7th, and a minor 3rd. So this is straight up Dorian right now. Pretty cool sound, right? Okay, and then the next one goes, same thing, C sharp, so that's the 6th, to D, that's the flatted 7th, and then F sharp, which is the root. Not the root, the 9th. Silly me, it's the 9th. So we're basically doing like this. Very interesting sound. Almost sounds incredibly dramatic when you play it like that, but yeah. Those are the notes that are being outlined. And the final part, we just go C sharp once again, so natural 6th, okay, 5th fret there, that's the D, flat 7th, flat 3rd, 5th, that's B, and then a really high root on the 5th fret, which basically gives you the 24th fret E right up top there. And with all that, that ends the entire thing basically. So all of those notes basically create this E minor 7th with a 6th and a 9th. And that's the sound that you get. All over a major arpeggio, which guess what? That really wraps up the song nicely because it really goes to show you how good that Dream Theater is at taking a very simple idea, a brutally simple idea, alright? The most difficult part of the song is playing that repetitive riff 111 times, alright? And that part in the bridge, I guess. So, masters of taking a simple idea and just mangling it into oblivion or repeating it so many times that you lose your head thinking about it. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on this journey. I'm really glad that everybody is on this channel and supporting the whole thing and, you know, making this possible here. If you'd like to further support the channel, please go to my Patreon or my Subscribe Star. I have the links in the description. There are different subscription tiers for different things. You can like the video, you can comment on the video, and you could just tell me how you think. Tell me what you're feeling, all right? And yeah, you can leave a tip on the PayPal tip jar as well. You can go to my website. I give private lessons, so don't be shy. Get in contact with me if you need some help and you need to really get to that next level of performing or just learning theory. You know, all the things we do in these videos here, all right? So, once again, everybody, thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one. And yeah, have a great night, have a great evening, and have a good morning if you're watching this during the daytime. All right, I'll see you later, guys. Goodbye.